Politicians are bought and sold. They give to the rich as they take from the old. They give to the rich as they rob from the young. On the end of their lines, at the point of a gun.
Welcome to Ed Deedigan Truth V Politics. This podcast is dedicated to exploring truth and politics. Never the twain should meet, you might say to yourself. You're probably right. So I am trying to represent at a town in Unitary in Old Money is the county council, to be an independent voice that represents the constituency, the people of that constituency where I actually live and work. Unlike, and fact check this yourself, a lot of the other people that are running in these elections don't understand how they're allowed to run outside of where they live. Doesn't make any sense, but check that yourselves. So Truth versus Politics is been brought about because I spent many years working up and down the country, particularly in this area, with communities, particularly disenfranchised communities, working with young people, etc., homeless people, children in care. And I've come to the unfortunate conclusion that a lot of people in local council do it for a hobby, haven't really got half a clue what's going on. We've been experiencing some really ridiculous legislation right across the board, but you know, and I'm talking Keir Starmer, New Labour, New Conservatives in red ties. But the point is that there doesn't seem to be anything beyond party politic or party line tugging or pulling or drawing or whatever that is done by people in political parties. So I'm an independent. I believe that my job is to represent the people in the constituency who I happen to live and work with, to have a more equitable and fair life for everyone. I'm not interested in what some party leader in Westminster said. Now, part of the community work that I've done over the last 27 years has involved the youth and community service and working alongside this wonderful human being. Now, I'm going to introduce to you. The reason I'm going to do that because this fantastic individual has worked all over the place, has won awards, national awards, has been, the BBC done profiles on him because he has done some groundbreaking work within Bristol. But he used to be one of our pride and joys at the Bridge Centre as part of the youth and community service before David Cameron and his mates, particularly at local level, Pete Hutton, etc., were people that got rid of the youth service because it isn't part of the legislation that you have to have one. So one of the low growing fruits that they picked off was the youth service. Shea Stew, thank you so much for coming on this. Shake my hand, don't leave me hanging, because that's
Thank
just
you
embarrassing.
very much, Mr.
So close,
Deedigan.
we're almost sitting on each other's laps
Like
that
this.
you didn't even put your hand up. Anyway, give us a little bit of your background, please, love, so we can sort of, these people out here who don't know you, there's probably not very many of them, can get an idea of your vast experience.
So basically a long time ago. Hello everyone, I'm Shea Stew. I am a now 41-year-old man. I started my career in youth and community at 19 years old. You could say that it's had the best of my life. I have done the things that Ed has said, and I was former youth service as well in the lovely area of Chippen in Wiltshire. Since then, I've worked in the charity sector, worked in lots of different cities, doing lots of different pieces of work. I have won awards. I don't know how. I think it's just because I love communities and working with them so much. But yes, I've got a very, very fruitful career, and I know an awful lot about the impacts of politics versus truth.
So you were around when the youth service was cut from this county.
I was the last man standing, or one of the last people standing.
Because it's an interesting one, was that I remember coming to a consultation at the now public car park. I think it's not even a public car park, the car park that was the Bridge Centre. I was at the consultations with Pete Hutton, who, for all intents and purposes, was there representing the Conservative Party, but also his role within the county council. Not one person at that consultation, I should imagine this was the same for every consultation that ever took place, was for getting rid of the youth service. Would that be your understanding of that evening?
Yeah, it was a very, very strange time. It was almost like it was done before any type of consultation was even put in place.
That's for sure. There's no way in the world that they hadn't already earmarked scrapping it on a budgetary level.
No.
Because there's no empathy within the Conservative Party.
You've just hit the nail on the head. The word was empathy.
Yeah.
There was no care for these services going. And what has happened as byproduct of that, we've just spent 14 years, but especially the last 10, 11, with families in complete austerity. But not just austerity economically, but with no fruits for their young people. There's been nowhere for their young people to go. So the charity sector have had to pick up the tab. The charity sector don't have the same level and the same empathy. Well, they might have the empathy, but they don't have the same level of professionalism as what local authorities did, in the sense of we knew how to do our jobs well. They were sophisticated.
Degrees and all sorts of stuff.
Well, there was lots of good stuff. You know, but also we were really, really good at working with other services to ensure that there was a bigger offer for all the young people.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, we did lots of projects.
But all of those families have, over the last 10 years, they've not really had a great deal in this area. That A is sad, but B, we're now seeing this uprise of social media taking over young people. You know, young people aren't communicating the same way. People complain about antisocial behaviour, but yet, where are the police? Where are the services?
Well, the police, let's look, it's the myth. Anyone thinks that more police does anything than pay more people to be in the police force, because they don't stop crimes. People don't not commit crimes. There aren't ever going to be enough police officers. You'd have to have one on every corner to put people off committing a crime.
Well, that's like back in the day, though.
They never had them. It's never been the case. It's always been a myth. It's something that but it's something that's been propagated. The idea of more police equals whatever, or more police on the beat is balderdash.
Suitable.
Essentially, that is just an illusion. There is nothing the police can do other than give you a number for your insurance policy claim, and potentially, depending on the heinousness of the crime, will maybe eventually be around. It's not because of their want or need. They haven't got enough resources to be able to even solve a lot of the crimes. So it's a red herring.
However,
shouldn't have to. We should police ourselves. There should be enough people like yourselves in really good situations where our young people, when they're not at school, when they're not at home, can go and meet someone like yourself in your team and get the right type of support, that they can see that you're not a parent, you're not a teacher, that you are exactly. You're in no one's land, but in everyone's land, because they choose to go to the youth service. That's why it works so well. They'd make allies of someone like yourself. You will be able to inculcate all sorts of norms and really valuable information from society that nobody from any other scenario would be able to do it.
Well, we're there to be the middle person, but we are absolutely, as youth and community people, we're there to ensure there's no judgment. So you can be who you want. You can learn in a different way. You can be the personality you want to be.
Yeah.
You know, but also the biggest thing about youth workers' role is to provide that informal education. That's
it. It's a social education.
Yes.
And the mental health, the rise of mental health problems. Trust me, there is no coincidence that places like the Bridge Centre, we'll just keep it to the fact, isn't the Bridge Centre in my catchment? Something like that, nearly, isn't it? The Bridge Centre's got to be our Fockhamshire. It's got to be in the catchment that I'm trying to represent. Mm-hmm. But it's an issue close to my heart because, as you were aware, that as Can Do, in actual hours, because we work with Young People Support Service, and we did summer projects, Easter project, whatever, we actually used the building over the cross section of a year more than the youth service did.
Absolutely,
right?
And there is a bigger thing to this as well. It was a space for everyone,
and there should be. And there were so many other groups. Even the folk festival at one stage were planned. It was a youth and community centre.
Yes,
and rightly so. Of course, there are other youth groups, and that's exactly right. That's exactly how it should be. So imagine our surprise then. Have a meeting with Pete Hutton, who is, I think, he might even be safeguarding. But now, I find it quite bizarre that somebody without children could have a portfolio that, and also having witnessed how badly he handled the closure of the youth service, he had no empathy, and maybe that's why he was put in that job. But I don't respect that. I think that's appalling. But here's the crack. I had a meeting with him and Bill Douglas, who is a Lib Dem, and your old boss at the youth service, and said, look, can do use the Bridge Centre more than you guys do. Whilst you're trying to find something better to do with the building or whatever, we will hire it and use it. We never heard back from Pete Hutton, and it was he was the main responsible, or Bill Douglas. The next thing we heard, it was being knocked down. Now, I had an interview the last time everyone was getting elected with Pete Hutton, and I put this to him. So we're going to show you a clip of this.
Bridge Centre thing. I remember having a meeting with you, Richard Williams, and saying, look, if this is going to go in a mothball, give it to us until there's another time when you decide what you're going to do with it. That didn't happen. So I was like, geez, it's so hard when you're on the front line. It's like the First World War. I'm not saying it's as extreme as this, although I've worked with kiddies that can kill people.
And it's quite interesting you say that, Ed. I probably should have said about it. When I was a young person in Chippenham, I was passionate, as I've already said to you, about football, sport and all the rest of it. Yeah. I had the opposite connection with the Bridge Centre. Yeah. I went there 2 or 3 times when I was 12, 13, and it did absolutely nothing for me unless I played football. Yeah. And I was looking for the bigger picture. Yeah. And I think the discussions we've had over the years, there are certain elements, like with any decision, that we're passionate about the Bridge Centre, and I get that. And when it was pulled down, there was tears and all the rest of it. Yeah. But I think there was also another element, even forgetting me that I'm a councillor, was actually, when I went there when I was 12, 13, whatever, I didn't get it.
And you'll see the answer that he gave, and then you ask yourself, is this the sort of person, or these are the sort of people that we would need in public office if they're being offered? Now, remembering that the Bridge Centre is a taxpayers owned building. Same thing happened in Cairn, all over the county, all over the country. It was part of David Cameron and the Conservatives' policy, chosen policy, not needed. Quite obviously, they didn't need to have austerity. It was a political and ideological choice. 150, fact check this, 150,000 people in the findings that I have died, so say, directly as a result of austerity. That's on the conscience of every Conservative representative, whether they be local Conservatives or in Gestapo HQ back at the central place in Westminster. My problem with that is, it's not okay. It's not okay just to do what your party tell you to do. It's not okay, and that's why party politics doesn't work. But you've been at the sharp end of it. I remember a woman getting up at that consultation and almost crying and saying how much you personally had helped her daughter, and her daughter had all sorts of issues. And I was going like, okay. In part of me thought, well, there's no way in the world, if this is a true consultation, that this is going to be lost, because surely they're hearing, these are obviously different, but the vast majority of people in that place, and I presume, and I went to one at the Neald Hall as well, would have voted to maintain the youth service. There was never a hope or a chance. It was just paying lip service to consultation, and it's had a massive detrimental effect on the mental health and the opportunities of youth service for our young people to get independent support that they can voluntarily go to without being assigned it or having to go through some process. It's just it's an appalling lack of trust. And here's the other thing. So it wasn't just in Chippenham. We were asked to try and get involved in helping some problems over in Cairn with young antisocial behaviour. And through our alternative provision, we had been working with one of these kids. That was the main focus of it. We said, actually, this will be a lot easier than you think, because we already have a working relationship with him. He trusts us. We could do this sort of thing. We're going to do a film project. Where could we base this project? So, can you remember the old, of course you can, the Cairn youth centre?
Yeah,
really good, wasn't it, right? So what about that? That's empty. And this is what the mayor of Cairns said to me. I should do a song now. He said, I promise you, Ed, you should never be fed. He didn't sing. He said to me, the problem is we're allowed to use the old youth service building, but we're not allowed to use it for any projects connected to young people. It was like a Lauren Hardy movie. I said, say that again. He said, Shay, it's no problem if we want to use the youth and community building. As long as we don't have to, as long as you've got no young people there. It's like, sorry, are you serious? He said, yeah, we were told by the county council. They'd gone in and they had vandalised the council, every PowerPoint in that building so it could never be reused again. So it was absolutely right across the country. I've worked in London with youth, on youth projects and stuff. Every bit of funding from every statutory youth service across the country was just about decimated. And that, my friends, is why, A, we can't have party politics at a town or a county level. I don't think we can have it at a country level either. But your project that you've gone on, tell us a bit about that in Bristol, because you went on to, you just basically went over and took over the West Country. It was amazing what you did. Well, you did. You could have quite easily been really hostile about the whole situation and never worked in the community again.
Look, in honest truth, there's two spins to this.
Yeah.
It was either sink or swim. I have got other skill sets to make a living, but it did take me 3 years to get over the youth service going, and that is a genuine thing. It devastated me from my core, because I was a kid when I joined.
Yes.
And I loved my job, I loved the community, I loved the people, and I loved all of the young people that I served. And I stand by that. They were people that I served.
Yeah, 100%.
So it took me a long time to get over things, but I knew that it was either sink or swim scenario, so I did move to Bristol, and I was hell-bent on making sure that I use my personality and the energy that I possess to do good again.
Yeah.
But in the same as anything, working for charity sectors, working independently, consultancy work, all of these other things, I knew it was never going to be an easy task, because you've kind of got to navigate this new world. And I'd say that within 2 years of leaving the youth service, the world that I had known had completely changed. So I got a really, really good chance with Young Bristol. I built some amazing friendships there, and basically took on a provision that I knew was going to be completely different to anything else that had ever been done. To clarify for everyone at home, the provision is the Youth Club on Wheels project, and it is quite literally a youth centre on wheels. So not a bus.
Howl's Moving Castle.
A moving castle.
The Howl's Moving Castle is Studio Ghibli, for anyone out there who likes that. Back to you. So it's a youth club on wheels that you took to far reach out
24 areas over 5 years in total. That's what it is. That's what it's been up to date.
Yeah.
To clarify, an amazing number, 1,000 young people have touched base with me on the Youth Club on Wheels project. I am so proud of that, because that is so many young people.
Yeah.
And, for a very, very, very small team to produce that level of work and to gain that kind of traction in the communities, and actually make a difference. And I think this is the big thing. I think if you're worth your soul, you will make a difference in a community. But it's passion, devotion, love for the work, and ultimately it's about bringing the communities together. It's really, really sad what I've seen since leaving the youth services, but there is a realisation that the only way you're going to make a difference now is by swimming through lots of other stuff. Because in truth, the world now, compared to 10, 11 years ago, is a different world. It's very different. And I think that COVID had an adverse effect on everything.
Yeah.
I myself worked through COVID, the same as yourself.
Yeah, we did,
because we're fighters and we've got spirit and we kind of crack on.
Well, also we had families in need. We had people, there's people
Exactly.
forget this, for all the town councillors that were hiding while the COVID was on, we were, like yourself, were being key workers and having to come up with creative ways to support families who were in some really challenging situations well before COVID.
Well,
so the idea of COVID just absolutely decimated their mental health and everything else. That's the parents as well as the young people. So, you know, I notice it's never been really talked about. I notice that the town council and what have you aren't talking about who, and you know that we tried to do this event. It's become the Unlock Reset Festival, and it's the 9th of August at the Monkton Park Pitch and Putt. But we wanted to do that with the council. We were told on no uncertain terms, A, by Ross Henning, who again is a Chippenham councillor, even though he lives in Carn, don't understand that, let alone anything else to do with his past and reputation. But the point is, he phoned me up and said, oh, you're putting people's noses out. We wanted to do a community event after the COVID had finished, Unlock, Reset, for people to nominate the people that had helped them get through, right? So all sorts of organisations and individuals like yourselves and whatever, yeah, and have parades and parties and gigs in both, have a parade with all these groups and all the different organisations that helped individuals and families and communities get through. Just a massive celebration of the community. We had a phone call with the new guy at the town council who told us the no certain tips was really rude, really hostile. You would think we were trying to plan a bomb or something, right, or a rave or something really antisocial. It's like, that's the council's property. I think he just, you know, we don't need a chief executive at the town council. We spend £85,000 on someone we don't need. This is councillors that told me this. And we've got this other geezer telling me, and it doesn't come from Chippenham, doesn't have any connection, but telling me in hostile ways that essentially we'd have to jump through all these different hoops to do this. It's like, no, you should be coming to us and saying, great, thank you for supporting this and thank you for being a key worker through this really difficult time. None of it. So what I found is that you got all these people, there's a lot of malpractice that I've discovered that's unacceptable practice at the town council from the chief executive downwards, being supported by Lib Dems and various other councillors, which all proven. We've got all the you know, we've had what do you call it, freedom of expression, freedom of information requests, and haven't been given true information. So it's malpractice, and we've gone to people like Liz Olstrom and complained about this. 20 odd years ago, we were asked by the Arts Development Officer to look at the Neil Hall and see what it would look like, what I thought could happen. I talked about new PAs, I talked about a new seating arrangement, talked about a new thing, everything that's kind of happened, but this is 20 odd years ago. To make it a community centre that community groups and people used all year round, week in, week out. And you see the newspaper report about it and you see whatever, you get people like Desna Allen, who is Lib Dem stalwart that stopped money going to deserving young people, stopped us because I talked about the chief executive, or not him personally, but the position of the chief executive not being needed, and we should use that money to fund the folk festival, etc., etc. So they don't like anyone criticising. That wasn't a criticism, it was an observation, but anyway, that's where they're at. So basically, Desna Allen was saying back in the day, I'll give us total support. We never ever heard from her. Once she got the newspaper sort of publicity, we never heard from her again. And 20 odd years later, and I brought this up with Liz Olstrom, as they say, my representative, and asked her to go and champion that and find out how come this, what we could do as a professional organisation to get the Neil's Hall into a situation where it was a proper community hall, common unity, that which unifies commonly. She did 2 years, did nothing to do that. Desna Allen did nothing. They backed out, so for me, it's like, right, the only thing I can now do is try and represent who wants to be part of that process. It's mired in all sorts of, as I've come to discover, Who would want to do it? I'm going to take one for the team if people elect me, because I want to be asking these questions that have not been answered, not just to my satisfaction, but to the satisfaction of integrity, honour and honesty and transparency. There needs to be a new regime at the town and county level, and we need to be picking out stuff that they've said and done, like, you know, demolishing the bridge centre when that could have been, especially through COVID, we could have been using that and paying rent for it, and that would have gone into the taxpayers' coffers. They got rid of that. They built Sadler's Mead. Look at the Lib Dems and the Conservatives that were involved in that decision. Total white elephant. Millions of pounds yet again. Millions of pounds misspent on the Neald Hall when it didn't need to be, because as a charity at the time, we were going to look to get a bid to get it like they've done in Trowbridge. But short-sighted, small-minded, hobbyist politicians supporting maladministration, because that's what I'm going to call maladministration in certain areas of the process at the town and county level, is absolutely abhorrent. So that's why I'm running. Now, you sir, you're a good looking lad.
Thank you very much.
You're a good lad. You've got a lot of community work. Is there any way that you'll ever come back and work? Because you're living in the town again, aren't you?
Yes.
Is there any way that you'd ever come back and help set up a new youth and community sort of service? It's much needed.
The short answer is yes. And it's something that I've wanted since I've been back, and I've been back a few years now, but I still work elsewhere because, like lots of other people, I'm swimming through water trying to make a living. The answer is yes, because I love this area. I always have done. And I spent a lot of my youth in and around this area. And actually, I loved working here before. And I look at these areas now, Chippenham as a whole, and I just see an area that just needs to be brought back to life again.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking about the youth and community element, because I think lots of people are trying to do bits.
Mm.
However, it's a consortium. It has to be something that is unified. You know, people have to be unified by something else.
Yeah.
And
because there's too much overbuild in this town.
Yes,
I mean, what's that about? All these houses that are being built with no infrastructure. What is that going to lead to? What is that? Because the soul's been ripped out of the town.
The soul has been ripped out, but you know,
you can have more and more people using it as a dormitory town just because it's got a railway and a motorway link.
But dude, it's not just that; it's the infrastructure of the.
Totally, I mean it. Yeah,
like,
yeah, whole,
you know,
across schools.
We can keep
primary
building
schools, dentists.
We can keep building houses, and it's brilliant. However,
I don't know that it is, but yeah.
No,
or even needed.
No, probably not. But it's great that the government are doing what they said in that respect. However, where are the doctors? Where are the new schools?
Yeah.
Where are the dentists? Why are people that are paying lots and lots of money in tax not getting anything for their buck?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why do both parents have to go to work?
Oh, yeah, that's appalling.
Like, why are both parents forced to work full time when
yeah.
actually that nurture and that love and that giving, one parent should be at home doing that? And I'm old school in that sense.
Yeah, well, whichever one decides to do it, I agree. So, but at the same time, hence, that's why we should have publicly owned water and electricity, gas, railway, etc. Because we wouldn't overcharge ourselves, would we?
No, it should be.
It wouldn't be getting dividends. Wouldn't be getting to private people. But all the money would be it would be reinvested, so we wouldn't have to pollute and put sewage in our rivers and seas, and the prices of it would be scaled so that the poorest amongst us would have to pay the less, and the more.
Absolutely.
Actually, I guess it would help if we actually tax people at appropriate levels. At all, some of them.
Let's be square and fair.
Yeah.
If we started taxing everyone accordingly, maybe the world would become less.
100%. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Oh, I would definitely have it that any money that was generated in this country was kept in this country and taxed in this country and not allowed to put into offshore accounts for all the people that do that. It's appalling.
We should be living in a forest bias mentality, and it should be, the people should have the options on what actually goes on.
Yeah.
like, you know, democracy is great if it actually works.
Yeah,
right?
I'd like to see an example of it working somewhere.
But but we're living in a time now where nothing of old suit does work properly. So actually, I think there's a bigger issue across the board with everything, man.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
in respect of bringing services back, I'll let all of you know, to be perfectly honest, I would absolutely love to bring professional community and youth services back to Chippenham.
Yeah.
From the ground up, have something that is tangible, works, and is for you lot.
Yeah.
You know? But it's about good people engaging in the right ways and producing a quality of opportunity.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what you want. You want to give everyone a chance to do like cool things, right? Why does one person get this and the other person doesn't? Well, if
Yeah.
we share it around, good things happen, man.
Yeah.
Do you know
I
what I
agree.
mean?
I agree. All right, then, on that note, we'll leave this and we'll come back to it at another time when the world has turned yet more cycles around its seasons, and we will come back to see if anything's changed.
Climb trees.
Climb trees and climate crisis. Yeah? That's a wrap.
On the end of their lines, at the point of a gun, and we'll work till the end of our days to keep the few in their comfortable ways. We'll do as we're bid, 'cause we're programmed that way till the switch is switched and we all have our say.